What do you see as the mission of this giant organization? If you could, in your own words, what's the mission?
One thing, take care of veterans. The only reason the doors of the VA are open is because of veterans. And I think so many times we became a bureaucratic organization at the whim of Congress and administrations because nobody wants to be on the side of not taking care of veterans.
In 2017, President Trump signed a VA Accountability and Whistleblower Protection Act into law, making it easier to terminate those employees who are underperforming.
The VA took that and they got rid of a number of employees, folks that should, and I'm going to be blunt, should have been fired. Show up in ORs drunk, they were stealing, they were having sexual issues. I mean, this is just all kinds of stuff. So they were fired. Well, the first thing they did, the unions and others went to court to block all of these happening. And I'm not one to look back, but I have to also call it like it is. The last administration, the last 4 years, settled all of those cases and either brought most of them back or paid them back.
The most important topic for me, Secretary, is the veteran suicide issue.
Me too.
I've lost many friends.
One's too many. And that's I go back to. It's like, I don't care what number you say, one's too many.
We all want to leave a legacy. What do you want your legacy to be after you leave the VA?
That they say he made a difference.
Yeah.
I want them to say he made a difference.
It's a very special interview today. Very honored to have the Secretary of Veteran Affairs, Doug Collins, former U.S. Air Force chaplain, U.S. Congressman, and now our Secretary of the VA. For years, I've been speaking ill against many things in the VA because frankly, they deserve it. They haven't done a good job for our veterans, the job that our veterans deserve. And Secretary Collins took a job that I don't think many people would. It is an uphill battle. And I want to give him an opportunity to come in and talk about things in the VA that are good and things that are bad and things that he's going to do to make it a better system for all of our veterans because they deserve it. And the 19 million veterans that they serve should have the very best system that our government could put forward to them. So I want to open with this. Secretary Collins has taken the helm with a mission to reform, restore, and ensure that every veteran receives the care, honor, and opportunities they deserve. It is one of the highest and most sacred things we could do as a nation. As someone who spent my entire adult life around warriors, from my own service in Afghanistan to founding Mighty Oaks and even personally navigating the VA system, I've seen firsthand how this administration can help and how it can fail. That's why today's conversation matters. Thanks for coming to Texas.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, you've been all over. I'm very honored that you would come on this show and take the time to, not just for us, but for the American public, get Markin back here, getting you all out to talk to the American public about what's going on in the VA, because I think a lot of people actually care.
I know they do, Chad, and I thanks for letting me come on, because this is an opening opportunity for us. Because I think one of the things is too many times in government agencies, and especially one like the VA, which is so outwardly focused, it's hard for us to understand some of the complexities of it. I mean, most people don't realize that we're the largest healthcare system in the country. Over 170 hospitals. We have even with some our transition in some of our employment, we still are larger than the active duty Army and personnel. So one of the things is most of the time we've only communicated sort of internally. We sort of communicated to ourselves, and we communicated to the veterans, of course, who would come, and it was just sort of this closed loop between there. And if anybody got upset, they went to Congress. I wanted to take that out differently because we're not reaching all of our veterans, number one. Number two, we have a veteran suicide and homelessness issue that is not where it needs to be. And then we have a care issue that's not where it needs to be. And so this is why I take the time to do this, to share from my heart to what we're doing, what we're trying to do, where we want to go. Are we perfect? No. Will VA ever be perfect? No. There's no perfect organization this side of heaven, and only one perfect individual. And he came to make us be able to get there. So I think one of the things that I want to do is just so there's a humanizing side to the VA, that the secretary is out and I'm just Doug, and that's all. When I go into the hospitals, I'm just Doug, and that's the way I want it to be, because I've been given a great, I think, responsibility to take care of folks who've taken care of us and those I've served with, you served with. So for me to get the story outside the realm of the normal is very important to me, because there's several things that's not going to happen. One, the VA for years has sort of been this sort of latent punching bag. I'm going to the VA. I had a person to describe it, just speaking very candidly to me just recently, said, I didn't go to the VA because, I could walk and I could do these things, because there's this misperception that you went to the VA if you had lost limbs or you had massive trauma. He said, I didn't go there because, I'm okay. Well, No, healthcare is healthcare, and it's whether it's we have diabetes, whether we have heart, hypertension, whatever. We're there for you. So I wanted them to know that, and so you're not going to pick on. If you're going to pick on the VA, you're going to have to answer to me. Mm-hmm. You're not going to mistreat my veterans, and you're not going to mistreat my employees. And if we're wrong, we're going to fix things. But we're not going to punching bag anymore on Capitol Hill.
Good. That's very good because it's been that way for a long time.
Yes, it has.
It is the second largest government budget, right? You manage a budget of $300 billion.
Yeah, almost. We're bumping $400 billion right now. And as far as department size wise, physical size, only DoD is bigger. But if you break DoD apart into the different branches, we're bigger.
Yeah, you get 400,000 employees.
Yeah, we got 450, 60 right now, 460,000 plus.
Yeah, so you went from being a pastor, a chaplain on the front lines, representing your constituents as a congressman, to managing this large organization that does so many different things, so complex. For you, just taking over, it's been almost 6 months now. What do you see as the mission of this giant organization? If you could, in your own words, what's the mission of the Veterans Affairs?
One thing: take care of veterans. Yeah. I simplify things. Yeah. Too often we have mission statements, and I've been a part of churches and everything. We have a mission statement. We commit to this, and their words, they're great words. Don't get me wrong. In fact, I live by those kind of things. But at the end of the day, we only exist for one reason at the VA, and I think sometimes we miss this fact. The only reason the doors of the VA are open is because of veterans. Right. So we're a service organization, and I think so many times we became a bureaucratic organization that grew and grew and grew and grew at the whim of Congress and administrations because nobody wants to be on the side of not taking care of veterans. Of course. Well, it's almost like, doing anything in life. It's a balance you got to strike. You got to take care of the veterans. You got to do so in an efficient, constructive way, but also in a sense of saying, this is something that's very important. So for me, from minute one, I said, it's no longer going to be about the organization. If the organization is not structured to do its purpose, which is to take care of veterans, then we're going to change it. And that's what we've been about for the first 5 or 6 months. And I think you probably would. It's been amazing, the reaction positively and also the undercurrent of underreaction. You start talking about, people's cheese and moving it, or you talk about their jobs and you talk about, it's amazing what you find.
Yes. Why you? There's lots of what led you to this position to be the top candidate to be the secretary of the VA?
I think it was beyond me. I think it was, we've talked about this a lot. I think I'm in a unique position. God, he doesn't make mistakes. And there's things that I don't know. I don't know about, maybe if somebody listening to this podcast today and watching it, they can relate to this. There's a lot of things I've never asked for, but found myself in. I never thought, a trooper's kid from North Georgia would ever, be in Congress, ever be leading the Judiciary Committee from the Republican perspective. Never thought I would, know a president on a first name basis and have him call me and know me. These are kind of things that he just, you're in the places and to be used. And I've always said, bloom where you're planted. I see so many young people today. I don't know about you, but I see even our veterans, seeing some of our young service members. I'm still in the Air Force Reserve, so I still have contact with these, bright-eyed 20-year-olds. I want to be sergeant major. I want to be a chief. I want to be this. Well, be the best specialist you can be. Be the best, senior airman you can be. Be the best corporal you can be. And those things will take care of themselves. And so I think in my life, I think it's really neat to see a pastoral experience coming from like I said, a background that was not special in the sense of privilege, but, had a pastored for 11 years, have a law degree as well, a master's degree, a law degree, then served in public life in Congress, which I speak Hill, which is an interesting topic. You've been up there many times. There's a language that you have to understand. Well, I was there for 8 years at the highest level there, at some of the highest levels there, understanding how that works. And then being a veteran of both the Navy, I saw a short time in the Navy, I've been up 2.5 years, and then I've been in the Air Force for over 23. So it's a blending that gives me a perspective. And I think my chaplaincy, I think God's hand in that has a big deal with it.
Oh yeah, when your name came up as nominated, everyone's, because of what I do, asking me, hey, who's Doug Collins? And is he the right guy for the job? And one of the things that I did some asking around. One of the things I learned right away, we were a chaplain. And I'm like, well, that's a good start. Especially for the things that I've been dealing with, through Mighty Oaks and the work we do in the faith-based side of veterans care. I'm just real curious how this went. I'm sure everyone, but who gave the call? Like, how's this work? Like, hey, did you get a call from President Trump? Like,
but we really can't talk about this online. No, it's a secret call. No, look, I've known the president, especially the first term, because I was involved, and you can go back and I'm sure there are people Googling. If you never heard of me, Google Doug Collins, you'll find. I was the ranking member during all the impeachment stuff, the Mueller report, all of that, Russia, all that stuff. So I was the face of it in the House when it came to the Judiciary Committee and everything else from the Republican perspective. So we were there all the time and saw the craziness going on there. So he and I got to know each other, through a lot of that different stuff, and we just kept in touch. In the interim afterwards, I went back. I ran for Senate and I didn't win, and so that put me back in a position of being at home and did a little bit of law and a little bit of other things. But we'd always kept up. And then when he started running again, I'd kept up with the team. And then as the campaign progressed, I started, going and speaking, especially in Georgia, and working with some organizations. And so when it got down to the end, I would always see him, and he was always just crazy. He says, "Doug, what are you going to do? What are you going to do?" And I said, "Sir," I'm here with you. My only job right now is get you reelected. I said, "I want to see you back in there to finish out what we started." And he said, "Okay, we'll talk." And he said, "Well, I may just bring you with me." And I said, "Sir, that's up to you. Let's get you elected first." And that went on for several months. And then after it happened, I happened to be in Florida at basically a convention that was there. And we had been talking with the teams back and forth. And one day he called me to come to talk to him, and some conversation behind the scenes about veterans. And that's the way it happened. And he looked at me and said, "I want you to do it." And I said, "Yes, sir." And then I asked him, I said, "Okay, what can I do for you?" I said, "What do you want me to do with the veterans?" He said, "Simple." And I've said this 1,000 times. I'll say it till the day I leave the office. He said, I said, "What do you want me to do?" He said, "Just take care of my veterans."
That's really, I was going to ask this later, but it's, I think it's so important for people to hear from you, because I've known I've had a privilege to be with him several times, and particularly in the veterans space. I've known him to be someone who loves our veterans,
yes,
like passionately, and has shown so much respect for our veterans. But mainstream media and political pundits and people that hate him have said that he's disrespected our veterans and said all these things. Outside the cameras and outside talking points on the personal side, do you know him to be?
Oh yeah.
Like someone that
I know him
adores.
Even more so. I mean, I think that this is the thing because if the media allowed this narrative to occur, then their whole narrative falls apart of not liking. Okay. And remember, up until the time he came down the escalators, the media loved him.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, they thought, everybody thought, everything. I mean, they made songs about him. I mean, they made movies, TVs, everything. Donald Trump had been in the American persona for 30 years. And this is the ultimate, I want to be Donald Trump. But what I've seen, and I think you've seen as well, is a man who really, number one, he's smart as a whip. Mm-hmm. He takes information, he just processes information. And he makes decisions, which is unusual in Washington, D.C., but he looks at it and says, "Okay, let's make decisions." And he takes input and then he makes a decision.
Which makes a lot of people uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable, because if you get it, he'll make a decision and run with it. And he's okay to stand with it. That's the other part. Yeah. And he stands with it too. But what I've seen is just personal experiences. I've taken, I was up there one day, and my wife was actually with me. This was in the previous term. And she came in with me, and we went by and saw him in the Oval Office. He just stopped what he's doing and wanted to talk to her. And "What are you doing? You teach. Oh, you want to do?" And it was just that conversation. I was able to, see others and how he interacts with them in the office, and how he interacts, with people behind the scenes. You hear stories all the time about, he reaches out, he does care, and it comes across as caring. Now, the media don't want you to know that, because that ruins their whole narrative of him being, unattached and things off the cuff or don't care about people. He has a great love of people. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've gotten to witness it firsthand, especially for our veteran community.
Very much so.
On the show, Secretary, I get to interview some amazing warriors. Just last week, I had John Wayne.
Yep.
John Wayne, he was actually born on the 4th of July and was a Green Beret sniper with a Silver Star and Purple Heart. True story. He was on this last week's episode, and just these amazing warriors who have a Medal of Honor recipient right out there. And people love hearing survival stories, love hearing hero stories, but I think a lot of times people actually forget the survivor, forget the hero.
Yeah.
And I guess for those who are not, Americans are not in relationships with military personnel, because only 0.5% of our country serve in the military.
Yep.
Like, there's a lot of Americans that don't have those connections. What would you say that Americans need to know about our military community and our veterans?
I think they need to know how committed this community is, how diverse this community is. It's not I think sometimes, all veterans are sort of lumped into, one category. I look at this sometimes, I'm from Georgia, and, the old thing is I do have a little bit of a twang. I do have a little bit of Southern, and, what was the old saying from the movie? Don't mistake my slow speech for being stupid. It's just how, but we lump people. It's easy to lump people. It's easy to, and we do this in our Christian world. We do it in our churches. We do it in everywhere. But veterans, we look at this monolithic group, and they're not a monolithic group. And they have a variety of opinions. They have needs. But the difference is not only being in the military, like I haven't seen it on my family, but also I grew up as a trooper's kid, a Georgia State trooper's kid, which is very similar because he was gone. He worked different days. He worked holidays. He was out and gone. Is what happens at home. And I think this is an important part of this, is the veteran themselves have the stresses of being our frontline warriors. And no matter what job they serve, they're serving a purpose, either deployed, downrange, or at home. But there's that home environment as well that enhances our community, because without that community, it's a struggle. So I think what I would love for folks to know about our veterans is, you have the extreme that think, oh, they're just warriors and want to go, tear up the world. And you have the others on the extreme of they're just, different people. They couldn't get a job anywhere else, which couldn't be further from the truth. Right. I've met some of the smartest, brightest entrepreneurs, people who served in the military 20 and 30 years. And, they are amazing people. So I think one of the things I would want people to know is that they're not a monolithic group. They're just like society, except they have a very important purpose. They've raised their hand and they said, I want to take care of this country. Mm-hmm. Now, along with that comes some special needs. And I think that's where you mentioned 0.5%. I've seen the statistics, less than 2% of our country had actual involvement in the wars of Iraq and Afghanistan and the Middle East. I mean, and that's stretching it a little bit.
Yeah.
For those of us who were over there, we're in a very small group, but which meant for 20 plus years, we sent over and over and over again. Right. So it was a buildup. So that's where I think they need to be, look at it from a perspective of these folks have gave a lot, they eat a lot, so to speak, and that we need to recognize that by helping them, it's more than just saying thanks for your service. It's just treating them as people.
For those veterans listening right now, there is a 911. It's actually 988, and that's the Veterans Crisis Hotline. Call it. Don't hesitate. Don't feel like you're unqualified to call. Doesn't matter what your story is, what your situation is. Reach out for help. For those who aren't in the veteran community, there's always someone you can reach out to, someone somewhere to reach out to. Especially share this episode amongst the veteran community. Yep. Please get this out there. That's one of the reasons the Secretary came out here, was to get this word out, and we want to make sure that the other 10 million veterans that are not with the VA knows that the VA is there for them. Yeah, so many of the freedoms that people exercise, when I see someone burning a flag, yep, or it's like, well, you can only do that because
exactly
of what that flag represents and those who fought to defend it.
Oh, yeah.
And I think people oftentimes miss, how we have the freedoms we have here in America.
Oh, very much so. What's the old poem? It's not the journalist that gave you the freedom of speech. It's not the politician. It's not that. It's the soldier that gave you all of that. I've had people all the time. I have reporters, or I'll have people come up to me and somebody has said something outlandish about the country, or I hate the country, or I do this. And, and you hear this all the time. Sure. And they ask me, what do you think about that? And I just say, God bless America.
Yeah.
I mean, they can't do that anywhere else in the world.
Right.
And, but yet, we're here because some have said that they're willing to take up this way of life and protect it.
Well, like we said earlier, you've been in this position almost 6 months now. Yeah. It sounds like you clearly said without hesitation yes to the president.
I did. Yes.
But you had to know that you were taking on an uphill battle.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of people who love the VA. And by the way, the statistics show that the favorability rating since 2016 has skyrocketed from 50% to over 80% now in favorability ratings. So the veterans that are being polled or giving good reports. But there's those who probably aren't polled and it has had this stigmatism for whatever reason towards the VA, and some of it's warranted. I've been part of that myself. I'll confess to you that I've been part of criticizing the VA for certain areas in the past, and I've testified on the Hill for failures in the VA. So you had to know you were stepping into this. But when you came in, like right out of the gate, was there things that you believed were working, and other things you believe like with this mantle, I'm going to change. This is like a targeted change.
Yeah. The great part about it is I did not, even though in Congress, this is something that I also understand, that Congress, the reason that Congress looks at the VA the way they do is, number one, there's not a district in this country that a member of Congress doesn't have a veterans in, number one, but most all of them have some kind of a VA influence, either a hospital, a CBOC, a clinic, a cemetery, regional office, whatever, for benefits. So they're always in it. 60% of the calls to a congressional office have to do with the VA. 60%. Wow. Now, I've said this before many times already in the first 6 months, that I view those calls as a VA fail. Now, and some in our VA they sort of bristled when I said that. I said, but don't bristle at me. But what we have to understand is for something has gone wrong, that we either haven't explained it, haven't done something right, and we may be right, but for whatever reason, we didn't make it clear enough so that this person felt the need to call their congressman or senator. And I said, so we're going to work to fix that and make that better. But the good part for me was having that experience for 8 years, knowing that from that perspective of the VA, I came in with an open mind. I said, I'm going to come into this, and I hear all of the discussion. I hear all of, the bad, all of this good, and depending on where you had those that wanted to emphasize their point. And I said, I'm just going to start taking a fresh look at it, fresh eyes. And I'll listen to our side. I'll listen to the other side. And then we're going to start making, changes in it. And for me, I'm not one, the old Baptist preacher in me doesn't accept, we've always done it that way before.
Right.
And that was what I sort of got the first few weeks. It was, I'd have these meetings. I said, well, sir, here's the, here's the plan, and here's what we got to, we really need this. And this is the way we've done it in the past. I said, and then I started asking the question, why? And it just sort of shut. It's like putting sand in the wheels. I mean, it just all of a sudden like, well, this is the way we've done it, and this is the way we need to do it. And I said, well, why do we do it that way? I said that, and especially I had some legal opinions that were coming to me as a lawyer. I'm sitting there saying, this is wrong. Mm-hmm. And they'd never been challenged that way before. And it's not they're bad people. It's just that was the way they got into. I try to describe it. I have found the VA to be just like any unit that you go into in the military. I don't care what branch you're in. You can go to one unit and it's hitting like clockwork. And then you go to another unit, something's off. You can tell, and you can tell when you walk in. VA's like that. I mean, we're an organization that is large and siloed in many ways. That was something that I found. So for me, it's just calling balls and strikes. It's just saying, okay, I don't understand why we're doing this. You as the doctor, explain this to me. You as the benefits person, explain this to me. Why are we doing it? And then it came down to, how do we fix it? This became the interesting part, and we're still dealing with this. We have a lot of statute that we have to deal with. That's law. That means that Congress has decided that in their wisdom, they have decided to make a law. The president signed it, and we have to deal with it. And so if we run up against a problem that is statute, then I've told our folks, I said, well, we'll go to Congress and say, we need you to look at changing this because right now it's causing a problem and we can't do it. But what I kept finding was they would say, well, they come in and say, sir, again, this is a statute issue we have to deal with. We have to do this. And then I made the statement. I said, well, show me the statute. Crickets. Well, it's there. And then and I said, just show me the statute and see if we can work around. I'll work on writing a new law and let's get it changed. And then policy said, and then we changed
statute is policy.
There we go. So then it becomes policy and it becomes regulation. That I have full control over.
Right.
Because that's what we're doing is we're dividing the problems. We're looking at it. So for me, stepping into it is let's for the first time have a secretary who's got your back. I want you to tell me the honest truth. Tell me what works, what doesn't work. How do we make it better? And I think that's starting to permeate again. And then going back to what we first started with, it's about a veteran. Yes. I don't care if you tell me that it's about the employees. That's great. I love my employees and I want them to do well. We're going to give them every opportunity to. But I'm looking for things that help our veteran employees and our VA employees help our veterans. So it was a tough job. I didn't look at the mountain. I looked at the path ahead of me, and I still do every day. If I looked at everything I've got to solve, I would curl up in a ball in the corner and say, I quit. But for me, it's just let's get up every day, tackle what we can every day, and move forward.
Yeah, one day at a time.
One day at a time.
Culture is like something in a workplace is super important to me.
Yes.
I'm sure being a pastor and being a chap, like culture has to be important. It's such a big organization. Is that something that, I mean, it's so siloed, right? In so many different states. You go into the VA office in like New York City versus like, Conroe, Texas. It's going to be. So how do you tackle the culture issue within an organization?
One of the first few weeks I started talking to not only our VA folks, but I had a lot of friends in business and in other worlds of leadership. And so I had a few of them come to dinner, and I just said, let's go to dinner and let's just talk. Let's talk organizational structure. Let's talk organizational. How do you move big things? They've run, some of these folks had run, 200,000 and 300,000 persons, employment. They knew what that size was. They knew the scope a little bit. And one of them made a comment one night, and he said, you got to understand, culture doesn't appear. He said, culture is at the end of the tube, so to speak. We all think that culture is something you can talk about and it's there. He said, no, culture has to come down the tube, and culture is what comes out of the tube. So for us, and what really got me thinking about this was, as secretary, I'm at the top of the tube. And our leadership should be at the top of the tube. And what we say, what we do is push through the tube, that everybody along the tube, so to speak, has input and looks at it. And when it comes out, we're sort of singing on the same song sheet. That takes a lot in an organization the size of ours.
And time.
So one of the things is we don't push. I push it. So the first step was, what is our mission? What is our focus? Number one is veterans. I remember my first couple of visits to facilities. I've been in about 16, 17. I've lost count of states so far in facilities. I remember when I first went there, it was, well, here's what we did. And they show us all the pretty paperwork. And I said, no, I want to talk about real issues and problems. I want to say, are we taking care of veterans? By about the third or fourth visit I went to some of these folks, it was all of a sudden you started hearing them say, well, sir, we take care of veterans first here. This is what we do. And I said, and I heard myself, I said, they may not, and I mean this with love, they may not believe it at this second, but they're saying it.
Right.
Okay? So we just got to keep showing them this is the right way. And that's what we're seeing. And to the credit of the employees, they're taking it on. And I think most of them, because what I said was, is over 10 years, how many of you have griped about what you do? How many of you internally? I mean, how many of you see things we could do better? And almost every one of them, they look at me with that, yeah, we could do it better. I said, well, I'm giving you permission to do it. Just this past week, I brought all of as many as we could get. There was a few that couldn't get there, but all of our center directors, our VAMC, our hospital directors, into a meeting. First time I'd had them all together since I've been secretary. I've been wanting to do this for about 3 months, because what I found was, and like you, when you go talk to people, you can make a connection. Talking through a Zoom, no, I want to be there. I want to be. I'm that. Let's get in the room. Yeah. Had them all together, and so for the first time, number one, they got to see me outside the lenses of TV news or reports. They got to see me outside of a document that they saw on their desk. And they got to see that, no, I don't have horns, and know that I'm, not this, person. They got to see me for who I am. So I explained who I was. I told them my background. I told them my heart. And we talked for over 2.5 hours that I had a chance to communicate with them, answer questions from them, take questions directly from them. And as it goes by, like all of these, it started off with, okay, what we're going to hear here. And by the end of it, I at least could see in some, he says it, and he said to verify it. And I told him, I said, I want you to trust me. I've done what I've said I'm going to do, but verify me. I'm okay with that. Yeah. Because I want you to hold me accountable. And I think that is changing that culture to get to the point when leadership brings it down, it then permeates to the bottom. And that they know that I've got their back to go out and try.
Yeah. In 2017, President Trump signed a VA Accountability and Whistleblower Protection Act into law, making it easier to terminate those employees who are underperforming. And it's correlation on that, I don't think that's coincidence, but there's a correlation to VA approval rating since that time has went up, like we said earlier, from like 50% to 80% approval rating. Is that really put you in a position to as a leader to have some kind of leverage over the employees to actually do their job?
I would love to say yes.
Okay.
But what had happened was, and some may know this, under the previous administration, when President Trump in his first administration, the VA took that mantle, went with it, and they got rid of a number of employees. And we're talking folks that should, and I'm gonna be blunt, should have been fired. I mean, they show up they should have been they show up in ORs drunk. They were stealing, they were having sexual issues. I mean, there's just all kinds of stuff. So they were fired. Well, the first thing they did, the unions and others went to court and to block all of these happening. Under the last administration, and I'm not one to look back, but I have to also call it like it is. The last administration, the last 4 years, settled all of those cases and either brought most of them back or paid them back pay. And the court said the way it was worded, the Accountability Act ran afoul of some union bargaining chips and also some of the civil service employees. So what we've done is we're taking us back, and the president has also signed one now to say that, look, we need to get rid of people who not work. So I've taken it this way. At VA, we had lost our management muscle memory. And I don't mean everybody, but most had, because either they were scared of a complaint.
Right.
Because this is something to say, and I'm not anti-union. I'm not, I think we need to be, but we need to be about the mission more than the employees are about a mission, and it shouldn't, interfere with that mission. But I'm said, let's look at this and do it the right way. So muscle memory means that if somebody's doing something wrong, just in the military, you take them aside, you write it up, you counsel, you get them better, give them another chance. If they can't continue to do it, then there's a punishment for it. And then you write them up and say, okay, we're going to do it. And you can do this just as any other corporation and company in the world.
It's like just typical HR.
But we've lost that muscle memory because of so many issues that we had to deal with. So mine is look, I've said it very bluntly, and the senior leaders have already found it. You don't fail up at the VA anymore. We had an issue. We had a senior leader in a hospital, had a awful time, got rid of them, and they moved them to a different location, basically doing nothing and still getting paid. When I saw that come across my desk, I said, no, we're not doing this. We're not failing up here. Mm-hmm. And so that person, I think, is now gone completely, which is what, frankly, should have needed to happen. It's not that I don't think they're bad people. They were in the wrong place and doing the wrong things. Go make a new life. I'm a big believer in redemption. There, by the grace of God, go I, but you're not going to hurt my veterans. So I have a standard. If you're hurting my veterans, you're hurting my employees, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, we're going to do everything we can to show you that there's probably a better pasture for you to go. Yeah. And we're going to use every tool we can to do that, but we're going to do it the right way.
Well, it ties to your mission.
Exactly.
Take care of veterans.
Yep. Going to take care of veterans, or we're not going to be here.
Yeah. It can't be more simple than that.
No, it sounds like it's hard, but it's not really this hard, know?
Anywhere else that you have a job, you have to do that job. You have to do it well, or you're going to get replaced.
Exactly. So we're not an employment agency. And when this was one of the things I faced early on with this issue of how we do employees. And in fact, we just came out of it, and I'm happy to talk about it here, because we had a lot of the discussion. The president asked us to look at reduction in force across the government. Well, 15% was the target. And again, like anything, if you don't set a target, everybody would just be all, hey, what do you think about how many people we could, are we overstaffed, understaffed? Nobody's going to take it seriously. So, there was a goal from the administration, said, let's look at 15%. What would it look like? And could you take a 15% reduction? Well, for us, that's 83,000 people.
Right.
Congress went nuts. Especially some on the other side of the aisle just went nuts. Oh, you're firing 83,000 people. I said, no, we set a goal.
It's an assessment.
It's just a metric. Nobody believed me. Every newspaper, all of a sudden, every time we had fired 83,000 people. We'd fired 8,000 people. We hadn't fired none. Mm-hmm. Okay. But this is what I had to deal with. And so just this week, after we spent 4.5 months looking at our staffing, we offered early retirements. We had offered other issues of people that could leave and attrition. And we are going to be down by September of this year, about 30,000 employees, all of which are voluntary. They chose to leave or just to leave from us. And we did so by protecting 350,000 positions within our hospitals and our VBA, our benefit side, and our cemeteries that they're not even touched. They weren't even eligible for this to make sure that our patients were getting taken care of, our veterans are getting taken care of. And we've done this, and in this time, now think about this, and I've already had people, you're pushing people out. Well, number one, they chose to leave. I'm not sure how you push people out when you offer them a retirement package and they take it, okay? But that's the lie that some senators are going around saying right now. But here's the neat thing about this. In the midst of all this, which was turmoil, and I'm glad, because we've ended the RIF. We're not going to be doing a huge, a corporate-wide RIF anymore, because we've achieved what we said we would do. And that is, where do we need people, and if we get enough people out, where are we making sure we're protecting our core mission? And, are we able then to reorganize? We still got some more reorganization to do to make sure we're more efficient. Here's the great part about this. In just the last few months, our wait times, which are so important, which is we're the only one of the, another thing too, I wish we could get away from, but Congress understands this. Our wait times have gotten better. Mm-hmm. Our mental health days are down to 17 across the country. That's down almost, I think, 15 to 20 days. We got that down. It needs to be better, but we got emergency provisions in where we could get people in quicker if need be. But then another one that I'm very excited about, and that is that we took a concerted effort for our disability benefits. And when I came in, there were over 260,000 backlogged benefits. In other words, over 125 days. We're now down, I just got a report at the end of last week, we're under 185,000. We've almost done 80,000 of those off the backlog in less than 2.5 months. So for all these people says that we're killing the VA, that we were, destroying all this stuff, I'm saying no, we're getting employees who are happy about coming to work. They know somebody has their back. We're letting people who don't want to be here leave. Mm-hmm. And we're making sure that we're backfilling where we need to. We still got lots that we need to hire. We always need doctors, nurses, and everybody else. And we're going to hire those people. But we're doing better for our veterans.
Well, in any workspace, if you were hired to be a new CEO of a company, you'd come in, you'd look at the budget, you'd assess the organizational structure and operational efficiencies. And I mean, the bottom line is you're responsible. You're a custodian of over 300 billion American taxpayer dollars. And so, yes, you're gonna try to refine that. So
we're gonna look at it.
Just makes sense.
Especially in 10 years. GAO had said for 10 years that we were on high risk lists. And some of this had to do with retention, employees, our facilities, and we're working through those facilities. Some of which is interesting because Congress has the control of how much money we can build stuff with. Right. But for 10 years, they've said, look, we got the same issue. In fact, we got it again in February this year. We're on that list. And I look back and I said, here's what we've actually done. What appeared we've done. We put $100 billion into the budget and almost 100,000 employees into the budget, into the field, but yet our numbers had actually went backwards. Right. So money and people wasn't the issue here. It was our structure and how we're doing what we do and how our focus was doing. So we're just putting that focus back in there. Here's you talk about a new person coming in, new CEO coming in. For the first week and a half I was there, I didn't have an accurate head count. I want you to think about that.
You don't even know how many people you have.
I was at headquarters before I came back into the administration. I was in the headquarters chaplain's office of Air Force Reserve Command down in Warner Robins. If I wanted to, at any point, I could hit a computer and I could look at every one of my reserve chaplains, every one of my chaplains, every one of my enlisted, every one of my officers. I knew where they were, what billet they were assigned to, how long they had been there. Everything. I knew the openings I had. I knew the overages I had. Everything. 600 people, easy. But then if I walked down the hall and went to any other any of these other branches, they could tell me who their people were. We couldn't. It was our HR system is not where it needs to be. It took me about a week and a half. Yeah. Then I got another one. So they said, well, let's just ask payroll. Payroll will definitely know how many people we got because we're paying people. We should know how many. They went down and we're supposed to be a centralized payroll. But they had allowed, so we went down there. They said, we have 230,000 on payroll. We said, wait, we know we have 400 and something thousand people. Well, we don't do all of payroll here. We still had 60 locations that were doing their own payroll. That they don't need to be doing their own payroll. It's not that they're got good people. They don't, but centralization, the standardization. So this is the kind of stuff we'd ended up with. You hit something early, and I want to touch it right now. Okay. And this is getting the care. There's this idea floating around. I'm sure the warrior community and the veteran communities heard it. You've been to one VA, you've been to them all. There is no bigger lie in the world. You have not. Right now, you've been to one, you've been to one. Mm-hmm. I imparted to these senior leaders just the other day that we are VA. We are VA. I know it's, maybe not we are Marshall, we are VA, and I said, we're going to have the same treatments and the standardization. Now you're going to reflect your community. If you're in the Bronx, you're going to reflect the Bronx. If you're in New Orleans, you're going to reflect New Orleans. If you're in Texas, you're going to reflect Texas. Okay. That's fine. But your treatments your standardization, your purchasing, all that should be standardized. Why not? We're the largest healthcare organization in the country.
Right.
But I actually had a gentleman come to me, and I saw him in Washington, D.C. at an event, and we were talking back and forth, and I said, how's your experience? And he was a double amputee. Mm-hmm. I said, how's your experience been? He said, I've had good experience. He said, but I don't understand something. I said, what do you don't understand? He said, I was just out, and I think he said Salt Lake. He said, Salt Lake, I was getting this treatment, and this is the way we were doing it, and I had this prosthetic that I was working with, and I've been doing it for years, and they've been taking care of me. He said, then I moved into the East Coast and went to a facility here, and they said, well, the VA don't do that. He said, I just moved from a VA that this is where this was going. I didn't go to anywhere else. What do you mean the VA doesn't do this? And it hit me. We have developed a culture that believes that all of this is siloed into we're our own VA. I told the senior leaders of those hospitals, I said, you are not 170 individual hospitals who've done it all yourself. You're part of an organization that is strong when we're together. So for me, standardization in the sense of how we do things and making sure that we allow flexibility is something the biggest thing we can do. That's the kind of sort of organizational mess that I sort of found.
This was one of the questions that I had that I think is echoed throughout the veteran community. Is you have a federal system, but when you change states, you have to re-register, get back in the state system. What is the reason behind that?
Yeah, we're working on that. They should be one of it. What it should be is it should be seamless for the veteran. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's what we're working toward right now is make it seamless for the veteran. We had another issue with this, not just our veteran, we had our employees. I found out something when I was traveling in Florida, I think it was. We have two facilities that are about 12 miles apart. Hurricane season comes, we have issues, we need to move people from one facility to another. It was taking 48 hours or more to transfer our doctors and get them privileged and credentialed in a hospital that was 12 miles away. I said, excuse me? They said, well, each facility has to be credentialed and they have to be, put in the system. I said, why? Here I'm back to being the giant 4-year-old again. Why?
Yeah.
So it actually took longer than I hoped it was. It took about 6 weeks. We've now changed that to where we can do within hours, have them transferred over to where I need to send them. So if I had an issue here in Texas, mm-hmm. but I had doctors in New Orleans that I could send, by the time they hit the doors in Texas, we've already got them. We know who they are. We know what their scope of practice is. We know what we need to do. So it's not just the veterans. It's our employees. That shows you, I think, it just shows you that in organizations that don't ask why all the time, you can become, well, this is just the way we always done it.
Right.
So that's where the why. So yes, those are standardization. I tell everybody everywhere I go, show me ways it can be done better. I made our folks the other day write down. I said, tell me one thing. I said, without any showing, I said, why don't you just get a piece of paper, write down one thing you as a leader would love to see change right now in your organization that you have the power to change. And I said, I'm going to stop. I mean, they're all heads down there writing. I said, here's your first homework assignment. I said, I want you to show me, I want you to tell me, and they're going to get an email from me saying, what did you write down and what did you change? I'm giving you permission. Do it. And I think that's what we got to get back to. Here's your one. How many times have you talked to a veteran who gets bogged down in the paperwork? They think that they have to get somebody to help them to fill out their VA paperwork.
There's organizations that exist.
That's all they do.
All they do is help with the paperwork. And it creates, I think it creates lack of integrity.
Yeah.
And there's, because now you got someone coaching them the right words to say so they get these benefits. And it's a result of, I think a process has become so difficult that it's not even worth it to somebody.
We've got to stop that. And so, look, I don't criticize, I don't, if somebody's doing something wrong, that needs to be corrected. But for folks who want to help people, I get that. And I'm proud of the folks who want to. But it shouldn't have to happen.
Right.
Joe Smith, who who earned benefit, should go in for a first-time disability. They should be able to take the paperwork, which I, by the way, have in my hand about 2.5, 3 months ago. They gave me, I said, I was sitting in a regional office, and I said, show me what they have to fill out. Well, most of them do it online. I said, don't be funny. Show me the paperwork, because some still fill it out on paperwork. I found it was like page 3 or 4. I'm not sure which. I may be wrong in what page it was. It was a thing on military history. And you had to fill out your name. You had to put all your stuff, where you served, where your units were, all this kind of stuff. And I said to myself, and I asked them, I said, why do we make them fill this out?
It should be in a database, right? It should be.
Well, you're getting there. They said, well, then we know where they were. I said, all you need is their name, social security number, DD 214. I can tell you everything where they've been. All we got to do is get that from DOD, which we can get. I said, why are we making them do this? Because, and what it came to me is I had just gotten through going back over all my FBI background checks, all my classified top secrets and everything again, in which I filled out 80 pages of stuff like, where was I at 18 years old?
SF 81 or whatever, I forget what the form
that's
is.
it's huge. And then you got to ask questions about it. It's like, am I in trouble? Have you ever filled out those forms? And maybe veterans out there can understand. You ever felt that forms like, oh God, I'm in trouble. I don't remember this. Somebody's going to come get me. They're going I said, why are we making our veterans do that? I mean, mine was a top secret SCI clearance kind of thing. I get why you would want to know,
sure,
but they're getting benefits they already earned. So my whole concept is make this better and simpler for the veteran. And that's what I need to see.
Like I said, there's a whole industry out there. And I mean, some of them are great. I'm friends with the guys at Turbo Vets. I don't know if you've heard of Turbo Vets now. They're really trying to help streamline and bring process and also bring some accountability and integrity on the veteran side too, which I think is important. But yeah, I mean, it's a result of this very difficult system.
It's an organizational issue. And here's what we have. How many times I believe the American worker is the best worker that we ever had. I do. I believe the American worker, they come here, they want to work. But if you sit them in a cubicle and say your job is, policy, well, they're not just going to sit there and play. For the most, now, if they get pushed in a corner where nobody lets them do anything, they'll play solitaire. Okay.
Right.
But most of them want to do something. So they're going to say, okay, I'm in this branch of occupational or whatever. Well, here's what we need to do. They start writing policy because they want to show that their job is worth something, which I think is commendable. But this is the federal government's problem. We start making policy, then policy, then policy, and it becomes about the organization instead of the veteran. In our case, the VA.
Yeah.
So what we had and I've seen this a lot, and you see this sometimes in units as well. In our veteran, you have a bad situation. Something happens. X box, whatever you want to call it. We make a policy to fix that bad situation. It affects everybody. Well, no, we just needed to fix the one problem, not affect everything else. And then later on, something else happens. So we amend that policy then to fix the other problem, and it affects even more problem. It's that ingrown organizational chaos, the tyranny of the urgent, if you would. Everything's urgent. Let's solve it now. I'm encouraging them just to sit back, think about things, and start deconstructing.
Yeah.
Make it easier. Make our doctors' lives easier. Make our nurses' lives easier. We're a healthcare system, and I want everybody who's watching this today to understand something. If I can get this across, the VA is going to be there to help veterans, but I do want them to hold the same standard as to the veteran standard, that we're going to take the best care that we can. But also remember, we're a healthcare system, just like HCA, just like Methodist, just like anybody down here in Texas. We have trouble recruiting doctors. We have trouble recruiting nurses. We have trouble recruiting CNOs. It's not that we don't want to. Some of them can pay better. They're going to go where they can get the most pay, or they're going to take care of their family. But also, there are wait times at public and private hospitals. Sure. There are missed appointments. Those are kind of things. So if you have a missed appointment once and you get it corrected and you get your appointment, I just want to say that's normal. We're trying to fix that so you don't.
Right.
But it's not calling Congress and saying the situation is broken. Work with us. We're going to get this better. We're going to make get our appointment times faster. We're going to make sure our systems are working. But also, we need to make sure that we're having realistic expectations so that you can get the best care that you need. And I don't mean that we're going to be less. In fact, we're going to get better. In fact, I told them just the other day, I said, excellence is our standard. Medium is not. And so that's all we're going to do.
this topic brings up the point a lot of people try to make is the VA should be privatized, which I'm sure you've heard that. What's your opinion on the privatization of the VA?
It's not going to solve the problem. Okay. It's an easy fix. But think about taking 9 million. Okay, take about 9 million veterans, and then basically
that's how many you serve right now.
We have 9 million, that are there, that are registered, so to speak, with the VA. If you take all of them and then you put them into the public system or private system, we already know private system also have their own issues as far as load and everything else. So all of a sudden you're just adding it on. I had this one guy and we got into a discussion. He said, well, they'll just take the VA doctors and everybody else. I said, you're missing the point. You're still, unless you're going to get out of the paying business or just go into an insurance side, you're still going to be paying for this. Okay. And probably the taxpayer dollars, you're still going to be paying for this. And so some of this is not going to get solved the way you think it's going to get solved. And so, but then also I take it another step. The VA is very special in the care we give to veterans, but we also are very specific in our care. The VA, for all of our, everybody's perceived issues, and I still think that it's the great place you can go. We're still the best at prosthetics. We're still the best at polytrauma. We're still the best at dealing with burns and some other stuff. And then when you take a veteran who comes in and they may have presenting problems with physical issues, but then you're starting to see some unresolved mental health issues. We're able to then package that together, I think, better than our privatizers who not used to seeing or to ask the questions. That doesn't mean that we don't need to use community care. In fact, we're going to use community care more. And I think that's the bridge. So I'm caught betwixt and between. I have people who want
it's
me
not
to
either or, right?
Yeah. People want me to just privatize the whole VA. And then when I start using the Law of the Mission Act to say, we're going to do more community care, saying, well, you're privatizing. No, we're making the veteran have a better experience. And so that's all we're supposed to do.
What do you mean by that? Like, I think the private care options, like what type of cases?
Community care, anything. I mean, there's especially in our specialty stuff. So, and we've just we're helping out our primary care physicians. So like the Mission Act said that if it was a certain, we put in, and you had to, and it's the only way Congress, and I was part of that voted on this, if you're certain miles away, if you had to take this long to travel, we'll let you go to community care or your doctor's in your own community and the VA pay for it.
Okay.
All right. That's just an interesting, it's a good proposition, but it does have its own struggles on how do you share records, how do you maintain quality, that kind of thing. The Mission Act, though, said you had this option. What happened in the last few years, though, is the VA thought that it had to keep everybody in-house, which raised our wait times and raised everything else, and also soured relationships with the community. And veterans were being very frustrated. We just implemented best medical interest standard on the process so that our doctors and our veterans, primary care and their veteran can say, look, you got a choice. You can get that care here and it's going to be this amount of time, or we'll refer you, if you want to go see the orthopedic down the road from you, we'll refer that out, make sure that you have your continuity of care. We're going to do it now instead of 6 months. We're going to enlarge that to 1 year so they're not having to check back into the VA and get the paperwork done. So that's a good balance. That's exactly what we need to do, because at the end of the day, what does it say? It says I'm taking care of who? The veteran. Not taking care of the VA. The VA is going to be fine. The community doctors, if they'll take those and partner with us, they're going to get paid, and they're going to help my veteran as well, but their veteran's getting care. This is a whole different way to look at this. I believe VA care is VA care if I'm paying for it, wherever we're going to go. Because if I have a doctor that's going to mistreat one of my veterans, we're not going to send anybody back. And we're going to let everybody know you're mistreating my veterans. You're not going to do that. So this is just a way that I think the president really, he talks to me about this almost every time I say, how's our community care? How are we getting I said, Mr. President, we're working. We're getting it back in where it needs to be, because he understands the relationships it can have between doctors and patients. And our younger generation, our GWAT generation, they don't join stuff. Okay. They're not rushing to join our VSOs like any, no, I think they're great VSOs, but they're not out there joining our local lodges and, command post and everything else. They're also not joining the Rotary and Kiwanis and anything else, but they are coming to groups like yours. They are coming to other nonprofits. They want to go build stuff. They want to go help. They want to go do things. And how we reach them now, we just have to look at it differently. So community care is an option for them who think that the VA is not for them. So now we're having an option. But again, we need to treat them early, because how many times do they have stuff that if they don't get treated? I'm tough, I'm good, but they don't take care of their sugar level. They don't take care of their hypertension. We're going to see them at one way or the other.
So I have two kind of long-standing administrative complaints, and one of them you already answered. One was the state re-registering state to state. So I'm glad to hear that's on your agenda to try to bring some common sense policy to that.
Right.
But my long-standing one, I don't think you alone could solve. I think it's got to be collaborative with the DoD. But it's this idea that you're in the active duty military side. You have a medical system, medical record. You EAS, you end of your active service. You get out. Now you have to enter a whole new system. Why can't there be, it's one federal government. Why can't there be one collaborative medical system to streamline that? Because this is where a lot of suicides take place in the transition.
It is.
A lot of depression, anxiety. Now you have situations where I've seen guys that were on meds from one doctor. They go into VA. There's some kind of shift in their meds, and things aren't well. So is there a way to?
Yes, there is. And we're working on that. One of the first things that everybody has sort of talked about the cabinet that President Trump put together. We're one of the more unique cabinets I think that's ever been. And some, our critics would say because we're not qualified or whatever, they want to pick on the president. But I believe it's because we're very qualified and unique to the positions we've been put in, and from a different perspective. But also we've all worked together or served together or been in a way that we know each other. So the great part about going in there was I knew most of the cabinet members, not as cabinet members. I knew them as friends. I knew them as colleagues. One of the things that we did early on is transition program in the military out is a problematic issue. It's broken.
Right.
But here's my problem. DOD owns it. I get blamed for it.
That's why I said I don't think you can solve it.
Yeah.
But.
So what we did was I went to Pete and the Secretary of Defense, and I said, look, we got to talk. I said, this is a program. I know you're wanting, a resilient warrior force, this warrior ethos, fight the battles. I said, but they're going to get out. And I said, then we're dealing with them over here. And that's not your end. I understand that. Okay. But we've got to figure out a way that we can be more collaborative in how we do this. So I was shocked to hear this, but when we did it, our historians sort of looked at it and said, there'd never been really a time in which the VA secretary went to the Pentagon, which I did, sat down with him in his office. We had lunch, talked about these issues. We said, you know what? We need to do a memorandum of understanding. We need to do this collaboratively. We need to get better help. He comes to my place a little bit before Memorial Day, and he come to my office, sits down, we sign that understanding. And it focuses really on the couple of areas. It couples on the transition, on how we can make this better. And it gets from the secretary level, we're now telling our departments, this is not an option. You're going to look at ways we can make transition better and how we can do that. And if that means warm handoffs, better handoffs, like you said on the medical side, that if you know someone who's already struggling with a mental health issue, or they're struggling with PTSD, they're struggling with traumatic brain injury, these things that in the struggle, I don't mean a bad way, but they're having to deal with it. Mm-hmm. We're going to hopefully we're finding ways to have warm handoffs. In other words, the DOD med, the VA med are coming together, and we're just going to have them completely intertwined, signed up, moving over, and it's just like a warm handoff to the next one. Just like when we deployed, if you had a chance, you could go see the one that
left
you were
seat,
there.
Right seat.
Had it all, and you just moved over. So that's our first. So we're working toward that, and also trying to get it more than just this, sort of, and I call it the death by PowerPoint stuff. I'm going to go sit down. You're going to sit here and you're going to learn. Most of them have no idea what the VA offers them. I was amazed at how many of our new veterans coming out of active duty in 3 to 4 or 5 year stints, they're coming out and they have no idea 6 to 8 months to a year later that they even have a benefit. Some may know about their education, maybe. They may not know about their mortgage benefit.
Because it's not just medical, right?
No, it's education, it's mortgage, it's all kinds of stuff that they could look at. So we're going to work on that. But then there's a second part of this too that I'm excited about a little bit, because DOD health has changed over the years too. Used to, it was more of a base mentality. You had a lot of families and service members and the service members. They got all their health on the base. They, that was the doctors, nurses, they'll just where everybody went. we've moved away from that model. We've scaled back DoD health in some areas, and it's there and it's very good, but it's just not what it used to be. So I have an example of a fort right now that I was called about just the other day, that they're getting ready to possibly sort of shut down most of their hospital facility. And I thought, what a perfect way in this area for me to enlarge our services for the veterans by using some of this space that's just going to be sitting there doing nothing, but are already medical spaces. So part of that second part of that memorandum is DoD collaboration and VA collaboration on spaces and facilities to get better help for our veterans. Jacksonville, Florida is a prime example. NAS Jacksonville down there, the VA, they started to plan, and then it run into some trouble with entry issues. Again, when you got the Secretary of Defense saying, make it happen, base commanders and all are going to make it happen. And from my side on the VA, we're going to put people in there that helps. And also it helps the DoD docs keep up their clinicals and everything else. So it's a win for all of us. So I'm glad you're talking about it. Keep talking about it, because it's a big item on my agenda.
Well, I didn't know what your answer was going to be. And I just want to say thank you for walking into the Pentagon and just bringing that to the surface, because it has been a very large, long-term complaint of veterans. And I think, like you said, they need that warm handoff where it's not like I end the system one day and then I start the process for the next one at VA the next day.
We're even looking at the possibility, and we're not there yet. So if you're listening to this, don't think it's had much. We're even looking at the possibility of, is it feasible for us just to have all that are eligible coming in, we know they are, that we just automatically sign them up for VHA, for veterans for their health care. Now, they don't have to use it.
Sure.
But we've already got the transition. We've already got the records. And so they know that benefit is there.
It can be part of the TAPS or EAS process. And
well, think about it. Even if they get out, let's say they're young, they're 40 years old, they go get another private job, they have insurance in this new job. Well, 15, 16 more years later, they're going to want to retire and get out. Okay, this is a benefit that they still have. It's not like it goes away. So this is something that we need to look at. And it's something very important because of something you talked about briefly, but I think we've got to talk about, and that is this issue of death by suicide and the missing links there that we have. 60% of those, though, are not touched by VA. We don't have a coordination with them. I come into this job and we're re-looking at everything we're doing suicide prevention, everything. I think we have good folks with good intentions, but we're not hitting the right people.
Well, the numbers haven't got better. And and one of the things that I want to bring out, and I just love to speak into this as you can, the last report said 17 a day, which I hate the fact that the government does their own report card, because and Congressman Derek Van Orden pointed this out on House floor, is that number 17 a day, they had taken out jumps, overdoses, and car crashes. And so
we also have reporting issues too.
Right.
And look, I do believe that, I usually say 17 to 20, probably more. That's the way I use it. We have
no idea, right? Well, one's too many.
One's too many. And so I go back to, it's like, I don't care what number you say, one's too many. But like in certain areas of the country, accidents that are reported as accidents, because it's in a community in which that has a stigma to it. Yeah. Is not reported that way. Not
every coroner in America is going to fill out a VA suicide report and let you know.
And they're also not going to put it on the death certificate either.
Yeah. So,
and it's not because they're being, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay. But the issue is, like you said, is go back to one is too many. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm sitting here with you. That's why I've been sitting with Sean Ryan. That's why I go to places that VA secretaries normally don't go, because we're not doing it right now. And it's not because we have people who are malcontents who don't want to work on suicide, but it's because I think we've gotten so used to the normal ways we go about it. I was just recently talking about this with our program director. We just spent almost 4 hours in my office doing this. And I was asking the question, I said, where do some of our people go? And some of the answers were, well, they go to some community groups and they go to the VSOs. I said, that's the same. That's the people that would join something. Mm-hmm. I said, tell me how we're reaching the ones that were not being connected, that are not a VSO connected. They're not a Chamber of Commerce person. how do we get to those? And so we're trying to use podcasts. We're trying to use influencers from movies to radio to TV, UFC, Major League Baseball, NFL. And we're trying to focus them on the fact of it's not just thanking veterans, it's saying get help. If you need help, if you're out there, and if I could think about this, think about it. If I could get somebody to pay attention, this is marketing 101. Mm-hmm. I use a country music star, or I use a UFC fighter who will just we sit down and we do a 15-second video, and he says, hey, guys, if you need help, call this number. Get some help. Don't be alone.
VA crisis hotline.
Yeah, call 988. Do something. And somebody somewhere is looking like a veteran or even non-veteran, a veteran sitting there who had, and I've heard these stories so many times, they were at that point, they had the thought, they had the means, they had everything there, and something got to them, a phone call, a call, something hit them and stopped them. That's my goal. That is how can we get them? And then I'm going to put it back on us as veterans. We can't forget that once we get out, we still have wingmen, we still have battle buddies, we still have those folks that we serve with.
Yeah, no one's going to care about a community like our own community.
No. And
it's just
it is. And so if you've got a group that you're with, or find that group again, and y'all stay in regular contact, and all of a sudden one starts dropping off a little bit, you got to call. You got to do it.
You said a number earlier. You said
988.
988.
So
all
you got to do is 988, hit 1.
Veterans crisis.
Yep. They hit right to our veterans crisis line, no matter what they need.
And there's a lot of great VSOs out there. Mighty Oaks, we're one, but we're not a crisis hotline.
No.
Like we're, at best, if you're in a crisis situation, we get you maybe in a week or two, like to our program, but we're not a crisis hotline. The VA,
we can. If you're having a crisis issue, we can get you the help you need, as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we do. But we've got to be able to get to the folks. And I think I don't want the stigma of anything except get help. I mean, this is my heart as a secretary, but it's my heart as a chaplain. I just look, if you need help, I'm going to wrap my arms around you. We're going to fix the moment. We'll deal with any other stuff later. And also, I say this as well, in organizations like yours, many other organizations as well out there, they may have had a bad experience in the military. And we're seeing this as well. They didn't end the way they wanted to end, so they don't. Maybe they don't qualify for some of our benefits. Mm. The vet centers in every one of our across this country, you don't have to have a qualification.
We have a policy at Mighty Oaks that we don't care if you have a bad conduct discharge. We don't care if you raised your hand.
I don't either.
Then we're going to serve you.
Yeah, if you got a problem, we'll fix the problem.
Because I've seen guys that have like silver stars who got, because of that same silver star event that they were heroic in, created problems that led to PTSD, that led to bad decisions and bad behaviors, and those bad behaviors led to a dishonorable discharge, and now they can't get the help they needed for something they did in service to our country.
And our vet centers they've been sort of, and I found this out, I started going to them, and I was asked first on, they asked, do I want to go to the vet centers? And I said, well, why wouldn't I go to the vet centers? And they said, well, normally secretaries don't go to the vet center. I said, why? They're our outreach arm and they're part of who we are. I said, why? And when I started going to them, it became amazing to see what they're doing and see how they're doing it, and that they're on that front line, that they're out there seeing people every day. They're and it's they're not in our hospitals. They're not in our regional offices. They're just off. Most of them are in strip malls somewhere or wherever they may be. But you can walk in there at any time and talk to somebody, and you're not being diagnosed. They're sitting there saying, what can we do? Hey, you struggling? We got social workers there. We got people who can counsel, who can sit there and just listen. Use I say this for anyone, use the vet centers, no matter where your background. If you're a vet, go to that vet center. And it's not just for Vietnam vets, it's for everybody. It is for all.
Yeah. So the most important topic for me, Secretary, is the veteran suicide issue.
Me too.
I've lost many friends. In fact, our little mission, 3-point mission thing at Mighty Oaks is save lives, restore families, change legacies for eternity. And save lives is intentionally first. There are so many, we mentioned earlier, over 40,000 veteran service organizations that collaborate and work with the VA. Some of them work, as a supplement to the VA. Some of them work hand in hand with the VA. The faith community has had a difficult time working with the VA because of different reasons. I'd like to get into some of those, but I think the faith community has been very powerful in helping with PTSD. Because personally, for me, I believe that, and I've said this testimony before Congress before, I believe PTSD is a spiritual wound, and a spiritual wound requires a spiritual solution. And while there is a place for medicines and there is a place for counseling, I believe in many cases, a spiritual realignment, people that make a transition in their faith and align their lives with the lives they were created to live, they land in a better place.
They do.
And so we've been extremely successful at Mighty Oaks. Outside of faith, there's a lot of alternative treatments that are surfacing. And at the end of 2024, just last year before you came in, so this is not on you. I was at Congress, and I was giving a testimony on this very topic of faith-based programs, and there was other people and other alternate treatment methodologies, ibogaine, psychedelics. All these things. But one of the VA representatives, and I couldn't tell you the name at the time, one of the VA representatives said that any mental health treatment administered by the VA had to be approved by the FDA. And that struck me. It really concerned me.
They were discussing the fact of just like, and this is where we go back into being a hospital system. Okay, where as far as drugs that are dispensed and stuff, if it's off limits or we can't touch it or it comes to that, then that is an issue that we have to deal with. Now, there are areas that we can through clinical trials. Okay. And I'm the first VA secretary actually in a cabinet meeting about a month and a half ago to actually bring up psychedelics in a cabinet meeting. Look, I'm also one who's, and I'm it's sort of funny because they say, well, you're a chaplain, to talk about psychedelics. I said, look, I've never partaken in any of it. Nothing, marijuana, that's just never been. But what I am seeing, and we're seeing in clinical trials, is that some of this is working. I don't know how it's working. I don't know why it necessarily works, but I see it with treatments that getting a treatment, having counseling many times attached to it, we're watching the numbers go down in people, and they're able to live normal lives. They're able to not be in the situations that they're in. And so for me, my question is why would I not look at something like that? Yeah. Now, I'm like you as well. I believe that and take it a step further, I believe that finding of self and that spiritual transition is a counseling. I believe it is when somebody expressed, my faith came to me because, somebody told me, somebody shared with me, somebody helped me get through times in my life. So I think what we've got to look at is we've got to put alternatives on the map. The VA is going to do our job. We're going to do within the law, do what we have to do, but we're also going to work with right now. You talked about cabinet earlier. We're working with HHS and FDA on how we can make some of these clinical trials more available, how the VA can work it. I want it in a controlled environment. Right. One of the bigger concerns I have, and it's not that I'm not trying to stop anybody or do anything, is sometimes things come out and they're perceived as the savior to everything. Yeah. And they run or they go to places that may or may not be good. And I'm being I want to be careful here because I don't want to say, but I also want to be just honest. Don't run off everything that's shiny. And some of it works and some of it doesn't. And I think what I'm trying to do is I want our veterans to come to a place where we've looked at it, through other organizations, through other medical organizations and FDA and all, finding treatments that work, making them safe and understanding the consequences, and then getting them to the people as quickly as we possibly can. I've opened that door. I've opened that door probably wider than most would ever thought. We're going to do it in the right way, but I believe at the end of the day, it fits the mission, and that is, how do we help veterans and get them to a point to where they're able to sustain on their own again.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. When I first heard the ibogaine thing, the word psychedelics is like a demonizing word. I was like, that's, it really. But I've met several people. I don't think I would ever be a candidate personally. But I've met several people that have had pretty miraculous, and you can't deny it, right? Pretty major life improvement. So I can't deny it. So I'm very interested with the clinical trials. I'm glad you're opening it up to it.
Yeah, we're having some good ones, really. I mean, ibogaine has a specific purpose. It does in the way it looks. It's addictive more on some others. But we're looking at MDMA. We're looking at psilocybin, and how those interact with the Bronx. Actually, with the VA in the Bronx is doing a study right now with treatment of the MDMA and counseling that goes. It's a sort of a treatment. They're doing, some are getting one treatment, some are getting a couple of treatments.
That's what I say. These aren't like recreational, like ongoing use. This is like a medically administered.
Oh yeah.
Microdose.
No, yeah, we're not. This is by no means, anybody out there. We're not recreationalizing these drugs at all. No. Right. This is and if you ever go to the go to see this, and I've been there. I've been in several clinical trials now. They're very controlled. Mm-hmm. They give the dosage. They know that they're in a safe environment. Mm-hmm. They are relaxed. They're there. They're being watched. For anything that may or may not happen. And what they're finding is allowing the member or the veteran to talk about things or deal with things that normal discussions like you and I are having are not able to. I don't know how to describe it. I had one of the doctors actually described it on a patient they were dealing with that for whatever reason, and this was she came to it as a skeptic. Mm-hmm. She said the administrator of the dose allowed like a page to be turned to what that person needed to deal with. And as they start to deal with it, and there was one in which she said they had to deal with one issue, and then on the next treatment, they were able to get to the root cause of what was really the first one. But it was like the medicine, so to speak, or this drug opened up to the right place that allowed this person to deal with it. And they're seeing phenomenal results. I mean, we're talking 90% effectiveness rate over a year or longer period.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'm looking at, and we were just talking about it with one of our center directors just lately, was I want to get it to where also if this helps, then I want to get them to be able to be off, all the drugs. Let's get them off of where they can manage. But if they need drugs, that's fine. That's okay. But we need to make sure that it's not sort of our reflexive outcome that we have to have.
Yeah, I mean, I think was one of the big, kind of accusations that the VA has had. That's like, drugs have been the solution. And I believe that, medicines have a purpose and a time and place.
Yep.
But there should be a, kind of pit stop on the road to recovery, not the destination.
It is, and it can't be reflexive.
Right.
And that's become my concern a little bit. And I want to make sure we're not reflexively saying, well, I've got, 30 people on a caseload here. Here's your X drug, go take this and it'll calm you down and you'll be fine. Okay. That would really be like, in many ways, for us just believing that somebody who presents with a fever, I give them Tylenol or Advil, the fever comes down and I solved it. No, you just mask the fever.
Right.
What's causing the fever?
Yeah.
And I think we've got to get better at that. And then one of the issues too, and I think I think would understand and appreciate this, I am making sure that our chaplains in all of our facilities, and we're going to try and actually expand this program into our C-Box and others as well, but all of our facility chaplains are to be integrated into everything that we do in the hospital. And again, we have chaplains of all faith groups and different faith groups and everything else, but I want them to be in those settings with our mental health professionals, with our crisis interventions, with our folks that need. I believe that there's the spiritual, mental, and physical aspect of our lives.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you leave that out, if you're leaving chaplaincy out, and again, nobody's forced it. Nobody's going, they ain't gonna be forced to go read and pray. But there's things that a chaplain can give that focus us back on like you said, that inner person, what we were here for.
Well, it should be an option. And if anybody has a right to choose, I think it should be a veteran.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
You got clinical, you have, different mental health aspects, physical care, but spiritual care should be available as well. And it should be the veteran's choice. And it doesn't have to be either or, by the way. It could be a combination.
Exactly right.
Of it. It probably should be a combination of. So with that FDA, and again, you got the FDA, one government organization like regulating another, and I get why you said that has to happen. But outside the clinical side, you and I both just acknowledge there's lots of things that you could do on the mental health side that are not clinical in nature. But the VA has seemed to be hesitant to partner with VSOs like Mighty Oaks, for example. And before I get your answer on that, I'll give you an example. The VA has the Office of they changed the name, so I'm looking at it. Office of Faith and Opportunity Initiative,
right?
Which was I think originally started from President Bush. And that's kind of went in flux over the years, different administrations, which obviously always does. But in 2018, President Trump really pushed. I got the chance to, they had the executive order signed to bring the Opportunity and Faith Initiative back in. He started the President's Roadmap to Empower Veterans and International Tragedy of Veteran Suicide. It included some faith stuff in there. I got to advise with Deputy Secretary at the time, Pam Powers at the VA. It seemed like things were going in the right direction. But then, of course, administration changed and it ended. And what I see the office is now is uses faith NGOs to promote. So this office uses faith-based NGOs to promote VA programs, but doesn't promote these faith programs as an option to the veterans.
Yep.
I don't know if that's an accurate way to say it.
Well, I mean, I think you're still, and I only try to live in the now, but I've been living in the now for about 5.5 months.
Yeah.
And, so what we have to look at is we spent, I think from what you're saying and from others, and I've talked to as well, about 4 years of not, emphasizing this. We spent 4 years at not just being in faith. Okay. In all fairness, I think we spent a few years in thinking we had to build up the VA, and things like the PACT Act and others contributed to that, which are not bad things, but
Sure.
Thought out processes and money were something you had to think about. Elizabeth Dole Act come in, caregivers, that kind of. But what we did is all of a sudden believe that we had to build up the infrastructure of the VA. We had to sort of keep everybody in the VA. If you wanted a veteran and you wanted help, you had to be in the VA. Mm-hmm. As you've told over this course of this podcast, mine is we're going to help the veteran in every way possible we can. If that means in the VA, happy. But if we can get you help outside, we're going to be there. I have met with more nonprofits, non-governmental agencies in my time in the first few months, hearing about exactly the same thing you're talking about, that just want a partnership, or they have the on paper we're supposed to be with, but it not being fulfilled. I've opened that door to say we're going to work with anybody who's wanting to help our veterans, and they do it in an ethical and a way that fits our what we can do. And I think that's been really helpful. That's, as I said, that's the reason we go out to these groups. That's the reason we have them come in. And right now we're seeing something you and I talked about before we started the podcast, was that a lot of those right now are getting very good and specific, like your organization and others, at a certain area of helping the veteran get better. Why are we not tapping into that? So I think there's just to say that it's openness to the faith-based, this openness to these others going through is what I want to do, because it actually helps our veterans. And so I'm very open to it. We're going to continue that. In fact, I think we have meetings when we get back to DC this week with a new faith office in the president's on the West Wing, up with what we're going to be doing as well, and how we can better intercoordinate that.
Yeah. And I will volunteer right here.
There we go.
To
I love
help
it.
you be part of that. I tried to help, last administration, and it's something I'm very passionate about. And have been connected with so many amazing veteran service organizations. And I believe the VA has definitely missed opportunity to, like you said, outsource, partner with, refer out to organizations that are doing a great job.
Yeah, we don't have all the answers.
Sure.
And the VA is not perfect. We're not all the answers, but we are pretty good in a lot of things.
Well,
and,
look, if somebody shows up here with a missing leg, I'm not going to send him to Mighty Oaks camp. I'm sending him to you.
Exactly. And I think that's just what we got to get used to. It's not a competition. It's about a veteran. No. And for me, that makes it very, very simple. And look, are we going to solve all the world's problems? There are going to be people out there today, whenever they watch this or see this, they're going to say, well, you didn't solve my individual issue. Well, give us a comment. In fact, we monitor comments, so especially if people need help, we'll see if we can get help to you. But, one of the things that we've tried to do is I've tried to get a handle on our workforce. And I've kept my promise. We're going to reduce our workforce, which the president had ran on and said, across government-wide, but we did it in a very measured approach. We did it in a very good approach. I think we had a lot of people who took the opportunity to leave. And look, we got some, they do take probably some institutional knowledge with them, but they chose to leave. Okay, I understand that. We're going to get people back in, and we're going to, if they had roles that we need to replace, we'll replace those. But we're getting our workforce repositioned, refocused, into helping a veteran. And that is going to show up in statistics. It's going to show up in, people being, happy with what they're seeing. We're seeing now how people are already getting their claims. I met a guy last night. It took 15 years. I don't understand why. I didn't have a chance to dig into this, to get his first disability issue. Now he should, be compensated all the way back 15 years from when he first filed. But why did it take 15 years? This is the part that my simple country mind has problems understanding.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the things I loved about a lot of these appointments, and it's been a lot of people, and I know you were in Congress and stuff like that, but it doesn't seem like this has been these appointments have been filled with career politicians.
No,
been with chaplains and captains in the Army.
Isn't that pretty cool?
Pete Hegseth, and it seems to be working out pretty good.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, one of the things that I want to ask about is a lot of veterans, and I'm in this space. Just full disclosure, BioAccelerator is a stem cell company.
Yeah.
They're actually out of Arizona. They have the clinic in Medellin, Colombia. I serve on their board because, so I'm giving disclosure. I'd actually serve on their board. But the reason I serve on their board is because they have helped so many veterans get care that is not available in the United States. And I know you don't have you're not Mr. Kennedy, you don't have the ability to change that. But is there anything with that's looking at stem cell therapy? I mean, I've seen guys that have been diagnosed with like spinal cord injuries and they're paraplegics here in the States. 3 treatments down there. They're not walking, but they're rolling a wheelchair and they're off their colostomy bag and they're holding their kid and shaking a hand and feeding themselves and have their dignity again. And so we're sending veterans down there through a nonprofit route. Is there anything being looked at to stem cell therapy in the States?
I'd have to go. That would be sort of outside our realm. We would love to. I mean, I've had some meetings with some folks on this issue on how we can look at it, maybe some from our trial side. But that, again, some of that is approval issues. Right. And that is where, as you said earlier, I mean, we do operate under the law and under, normal, if you can't get in, because a lot of the stem cell you can't get in your normal hospitals either. You're probably in private hospitals. There's some, specific clinics. There's some ways they can do it. So I think some of it's just an acceptance level as we move forward. And again, as I said before, if we can, work with HHS, work with the other approval processes as we go through there, and it works for us and it works for veterans, then I'm open to it. Yeah. And I think that's but it's just new things take a while. I've seen this in even before I was Secretary of VA, it just, it's like, well, why is this taking
so long? Yeah.
So, but we see it.
It's amazing. Like I said, the level of care that they're able to get, and it's the fact that it's not available for our veterans here in the States, it really puts a fire under me. So if you guys ever do want to talk to somebody down there, I could get.
I'll make sure we look at it when we get back, and we'll make sure that if we have some of our folks who are looking at it, we can connect the two and just see what can or can't be done.
I think ultimately you're right. Health and Human Services has got to be.
There's some approval processes and all have to be in that.
We talked primarily about the medical side of the VA, but we briefly mentioned that the VA does a lot more than medical care. Can you just educate the listeners on all the other things the VA does that we often don't think about, right? We think about it as medical, but there's so much more.
Well, there is. And there's so much things that, just signing up, we have a VA newsletter that goes to all veterans. We have everything from, stuff that they can get for discounted prices. I mean, the veterans that you may not find everywhere else that works. And those are simple things that, for travel and everything else. But then you have the veteran benefits side where you have your disability side, which most people know when they deal with their healthcare side. But then you've got mortgages. We do the VA home loan. That's the program that it's been one of the it's the best program that we have. It's easy.
I've used it every time.
It has been great. You have your educational benefits. And I encourage all of our folks to look into their educational benefits, see what they have, see what they've earned. And it's something from, especially deployed, if they've been active, they have these benefits. And they don't have to keep those benefits either. If they're not going to use them, by the time when I started to look at using an educational benefit, I already had my law degree. So, it's like I was past the point, but I was able to use some of my benefits for my kids.
And this is separate from the GI Bill.
Yes, it's a part of that whole set, the post 9/11 stuff and everything that we use in that. So we administer it. So there's the kind of things that are out there for veterans, to look into and to be a part. I would encourage them to go, to our website, go to va.gov. They can look at all the stuff that we have to offer. This country has been very generous and understanding over the years that our veterans have served. We've not always done a good job communicating that. We've not always done a good job of making it easy. which is what I'm trying to deal with. But there are a lot of things out there that this country has done for its veterans that I would encourage people to look into. And it's sort of one of those pick and choose what you want to look into. Some things if you don't want to deal with, that's fine. But there's others out there who may need it. And so I think that's what I want everybody just familiarize themselves with what the VA has to offer. And they don't have to go through middlemen. They can go straight to the va.gov website. They can go to our numbers, the 411 number, and they can get right there to it.
Yeah. What are some everyday Americans? What is something that you would suggest an everyday American could do for our veteran community?
I think do more at ways of trying to understand more than thank you for your service, which we appreciate.
Sure.
You do. I mean, we do. We think it's good, but also realize that just like our military folks and our veterans, that carried, for many of us, carry a different mindset and burden. And I think helping veterans find jobs that suit their skills and their talents. I think that's a way that a non-veteran community can help. If you're close to a base, and this is not to the veteran status yet, but still getting to me. I always said DOD and VA are fraternal twins. We just take care of the same people in different ways. But, if you're around a base, what you have is a lot of mix of active duty, you have the others, but you also have a lot of veterans who have stayed in the area. What I would encourage is faith communities and churches, reach out in ways that are specific to maybe veterans that they can get involved in. And it may be outside the walls of your church. It may be outside the walls of your organization, but interact with them because it gives them the ability to have a outlet that they may not feel like they have. They may not feel that connectivity to it. So I think most of it is just, being aware there's different needs, family needs. How many times have you and I both known veterans who have, they went through stuff or they take jobs and that family component is left out of it. Their own family, they're struggling. And I think that's a great way for not only faith-based community, but also other folks in communities that can reach in and help that mom or that dad that may just need a little extra support as we go forward. So there's a lot of ways to do it beyond we thank you for your service. And I'm going to also pitch something here. Although our recruitment is up right now, I would encourage a lot of our fellow citizens to join.
Serve.
To be a part, serve.
Yeah.
Come in there. Because like I said, you think about our Army and stuff, you think about, my workforce is bigger than our Army active duty right now. That's 450, they're at 455,000 in strength. That's smaller than a congressional district, to put it in perspective.
Right.
So, serve. Serving this country that has given us so much should be an honor and a privilege. And this country needs to know that its DOD and its VA are there to support you through the entire way. There's one other thing, though, that I would mention, and we don't like to talk about it, especially our guys, people don't. We have three main business lines that we call them in the VA. We have our health care, we have our benefits, and we have the cemeteries, our NCA, National Cemetery. That is a wonderful benefit that is earned by the veterans to be buried in our cemeteries at no cost. Their spouse can be buried with them. And you have a wonderful one here. I just got through going by this morning, paying my respects to someone there and also seeing our community there. They're all across the country. We have over 130 of these cemeteries. They're immaculately kept up. They're beautiful. They respect the dignity of our veterans and the service that they've had. Some of them are very old. I would encourage somebody, if you really like to go see them, and we have them all the way back to our Union soldiers and others. We have one that was up in Indiana that had a Revolutionary War soldier was buried that they found out about. But they're there. So it's just something to earn, and it's something, it's there for you. And you don't have to, so I hear sometimes veterans, that, I can't afford a funeral. Well, yeah, you can, because you earn that benefit. It's there for them. So I never like to leave out my cemetery folks because they're great folks. You don't hear about them. They're my one business line that nobody complains about for the most part, but they're great folks there.
Well, I think it's great too for, parents. Take your kids to see that, give them education on why they get to live in this great country and enjoy the freedoms we have, and let them know right there is a tangible evidence of the cost. And
they don't have to go to Arlington.
Yes. Yeah.
Arlington is a great place. It's a humbling place to go to. But like I said, just here, if you're in the Houston area, you got one, you got your facility here. You got up in Dallas, you got a magnificent facility up there. That again, this is all that fit, and especially the one here, but it's, in Dallas and other way, they have funerals 2 to 3 or some every day. Mm-hmm. And some of these are veterans who have lived a long time. Some, unfortunately, are ones taken too quick, and then some have died overseas. Yes. And that's where we need to be.
Secretary, the problem with DC is people, politicians, and you, regardless of how you handle your position, you're going to be looked at by the other side as opposition.
I am.
Veterans care should be bipartisan, and it should be sacred to where there's no infighting in DC.
Should.
But it hadn't been the case. I don't know if they're watching. They're probably not because of the show.
I'm sure they probably are.
But maybe because you're on there watching. What would you say to both sides of the aisle when it comes to bipartisan support for veterans care?
I think take a fresh look at it.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, I shared this earlier, and I want everybody to know this because it's been reported in the media. We're stopping our look at our large scale RIF, our reduction in force. We're going to have about 30,000. I shared this all earlier. It's a good thing. Our numbers have went up. We're now stabilizing our workforce. Our workforce is not worried about it. We got some things we're going to change. But immediately I was attacked. I was said that we pushed people out. No, they chose to take the early retirement. They chose to take they just left our service, and we hadn't filled the job. We got to quit worrying about the organizational structure. We're going to worry about government and worry about what we're doing. And that's what I would encourage for both sides is the VA is not going to be solved by legislation. It's going to be solved by a lot of hard work by the people that we have here that are focused on the right thing, which is our veteran, by taking new approaches to new ideas. And so what I would do is encourage you is to, are we getting the right results? Let's ask the right question. And that's for Democrats, Republicans, Independents, doesn't matter. Ask the right questions. And I hear a lot of times on the Hill, we got to take care of our veterans. Well, what does that mean? Mm. Does that mean that you just throw money and people at it and that solves all your problems?
Yeah.
No.
It doesn't, and it hasn't.
It hasn't for anything, really. And because I use this example all the time, and I would love to sit down with members on both sides and say, look, if I was with you when I was up here 10 years ago, because I was in Congress 10 years ago, and I said, okay, here's the budget for the VA. Here's how many employees they have. In 10 years, we're going to add $100 billion or more to the budget, and we're going to add almost 100,000 employees. They would have all said, that'll solve our problem. Mm-hmm. It didn't solve our problem. And so many times what we've got to do is make sure that we're giving the best care we can, the best treatment we can, and not for the sake of a political soundbite to say, I'm taking care of veterans. Either add a new program, add a new report, add something. Let's work toward getting solutions instead of it being, something that it's not. And we have good veterans who are serving in Congress right now. They tend to get it. We have some who've never served and they get it, but sometimes they want to help more. And I respect that. I think working together, my door is open to Republicans and Democrats, both sides, but let's have an honest discussion about what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest problem we have.
Is there any, in this next, 6 months, year, is there any major goals that you, like tangible, like a goal that you have that you could share? Yeah,
they are tangible goals is right now, after I've gotten through the initial, let's get stuff done. Let's streamline contracts. Let's streamline the stuff that we're doing. Let's get this reduction in force issue out of the way now, which we've done. My next one is determining what can we do through policy and changes to make it simpler. That's going to be your standardization process. So these next 6 months for me is going to be, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? And what can we change?
Yeah.
And I go back and I've shared this a lot. When I was pastor for 11 years, I had an older congregation. My deacon board was 70, 80 years old. I'm 28, 30-year-old kid.
It was Georgia Southern Baptist.
Oh, you better believe it. And one night, I've shared this story so many times, the gentleman told me we were talking about changing something. Our church was growing. We had a lot of youth coming, and I wanted to do some changes. He said, and I wanted to, I think, move some classrooms or change the time of a service or something. And the gentleman said, preacher, he said, I appreciate it. And what you're doing, I'm supporting you. He said, but remember, when we move quick, I need you to remember that before you move a fence, you got to know why that fence was put up. And of course, I'm young at the time. I said like, okay, Mr. Maurice, I get it, but we need to move this move. And the more I got to thinking about it, and what he explained was, he said there could have been a reason that you can still make the move, but you need to understand why. And so what we're doing now, what I want all of our folks to do is look at what you do. Why is that fence there? That proverbial fence or allegorical fence, however you want to call it. Why is it there? Is it there for a reason still? Or is it hindering what we're doing now? Was it great 30 years ago because it helped in this area? Or does it now need to be moved so that we can help this new generation of veterans, this new generation of people who need our help in a different way?
Yeah.
So my next 6 months is going to be on that focus of getting the culture and getting the basically the assignment aligned.
Well, I'd love to, whether it's you or Morgan, follow back up in 6 months and just see.
I look forward to
give the audience, listeners, a kind of an update where you guys are.
I will be happy to, because again, I believe in our veterans.
Yeah.
But I believe in our employees to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I've told them many times, you go do the work, I'll have you back.
Yes.
Congress wants to fight, I'll fight. Okay, that's my job. Your job is to go do yours.
The biggest update I'll be asking for is where are you and Pete with this transition?
Well,
this transition
Pete, if you're
thing.
watching, which you may be, Pete, we got to get on it. We're continuing this fight.
I'll send him. I got a cell phone number. I'll text him a soundbite.
Yeah,
and be like, hey.
Yeah, we're working on this.
Yeah, I think if anybody could do it, it's the two of you.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
And I'm very thankful to hear you guys had that conversation. I mean that because no one has.
Yep.
And
I was amazed that when like I said, our historian said there'd never been the Secretary of Defense come to the VA and the VA never going. It was just, I said, really?
Yeah,
it's just me picking up the phone and calling Pete. I mean, it's like, and that's what makes it so good. I mean, we had an issue with housing. I call up Scott Turnover at HUD. Hey, Scott, I need this. Oh, okay. Hey, I need something at HHS. Bobby came over and started talking about the psychedelic issue. He came to me and we went to both offices. We've shared people, the labor. I mean, it's just a different function.
Yeah. Imagine that, people working together.
Scary, isn't it?
Across the, yeah. Well, what do you, you don't seem like this about you at all. No. I mean, you make that very clear, but still, we all want to leave a legacy. What do you want your legacy to be after you leave the VA?
That they say you made a difference.
Yeah.
I want them to say you made a difference.
Yeah.
That my life may be a little better because of it. My time in service, the things that I've been over with, not only in the pastoring and law enforcement and dealing with chaplaincy, but being in there, being in Iraq, being in others. I'm at the point in my life where God's blessed me with a wife of 37 years that is my heart. And she's actually with me in DC now, which I couldn't do it without her being there and me seeing it. 3 kids are grown. I've been blessed with 2 sons and a daughter who has special needs. And so I've learned the caregiving role over the years. She caregives me more than anybody. But I've gotten to that point in my life where all I want to see in my staff, the folks who work with me, the people at the VA, the veterans, I want to see them do good. I want to see them do great.
Yeah. Well, you could have all the business and degrees and all that stuff, but I really think it comes down to your heart and your motives.
Yep.
And if that's pure, then you're going to make a difference.
I just want them to do it.
Yeah, you're in a good starting point for it. Last question for everybody that's here. This is the Resilient Show.
Yep.
And just to share with our audience what resiliency means to you.
It means being able to take life and place it in proper perspective and getting through to the next day. For me, it is finding your foundation that doesn't move. For me, it's my faith in Jesus Christ, who gave more than I could ever earn. And knowing that faith is my beacon no matter what's going on.
Yeah.
And so I think everybody has to find that place in their life where they find that calm. And so for me, it's resiliency keeps you going. What I find too many times, though, is people think resiliency is doing stuff, and sometimes resiliency is just being calm.
Yes.
And being ready and being ready for the next round.
Some wise words from Secretary Collins. Every guest on our show gets hooked up with all kind of sponsor gifts. We do the best job at giving sponsor gifts. We have Smith & Wesson and Vortex Optic Gators, but unfortunately, you're one of our first guests we can't do that with because you're in public office, and I appreciate that.
Yep.
But we'll give you some books. I think you're allowed to take some
I
books.
can take some books, put in our library back in the VA. That'd be great.
And, some of these books, the three on top there, we've given away over almost a 500,000 copies to our troops.
Right. Okay.
And so one's on spiritual resiliency, one's on suicide prevention, and one's on what the truth is about PTSD from a creation perspective.
No, that's right.
And so I'm very happy to share those with you.
Well, I look forward, and I'll share them as well.
And even though we couldn't give the secretary gifts, we're very thankful to our sponsors that make the show happen.
And I'm thankful to them as well.
Yeah.
Thank you for helping my veterans.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for being here, Secretary. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And I look forward to making a trip down to DC and seeing you.
I look forward to it. Come up. We'll have a good time.
Yes, sir. All right. God bless. Hey, guys. For those veterans listening right now, I want to make sure you know what Secretary said earlier. If you're struggling, you need help, there is a 911. It's actually 988, and that's the Veterans Crisis Hotline. Call it. Don't hesitate. Don't feel like you're unqualified to call. Doesn't matter what your story is, what your situation is. Reach out for help. For those who aren't in the veteran community, there's always someone you can reach out to, someone somewhere to reach out to. Beyond the VA, there's great organizations, veteran service organizations out there. You heard us mention there's 40,000 of them. Mighty Oaks is one of them. We offer resiliency training, faith-based solutions, and just incredible, no strings attached care. We pay for flights, everything. All you have to do is go to our website, mightyoaksprograms.org, and apply for the help that we offer at Mighty Oaks. If you're not already done so, comment, like, subscribe, and share this episode. Especially share this episode amongst the veteran community, please. Please get this out there. That's one of the reasons the Secretary came out here, was to get this word out, and we want to make sure that the other 10 million veterans that are not with the VA knows that the VA is there for them. So please share this. Also, last thing, Patreon. If you're not part of our Patreon family, then please consider joining our Patreon to help support this show, and you get tons of behind-the-scenes content that you won't get here, and lots of stuff like shooting and lots of different types of tips, and we have some new classes coming out that I want you to check out. So stay tuned and stay resilient. God bless. Hey, what's up, Resilient family? I am so grateful for each of you who tune in every week to hear our episodes. We have such incredible guests and topics that I am passionate about, our team's passionate about, and we could not do it without you. So we're thankful for you. We love you. We appreciate you locking arms with us to be more informed, to become a more resilient community. And I want to invite you to become a tighter part of that community by joining us on Patreon. If you go to our show notes below, you can click the link and get dialed into our Patreon and get extra content weekly. You can join for $15 a month and get behind-the-scenes footage, get closer access to me. I have monthly Zooms that I'll be doing with some members of the community. And so we'd love to get more involved. Again, go below in the show notes and click the link and join today.